Hi, I'm Andrea Roediger, Principal Broker with Weichert Realtors on Main Street here in Hillsboro, Oregon. Haven't made a video in a while, so I'm excited to be here. And I thought today I wanted to talk about agent commissions and the lawsuit that happened last year, the settlement with the National Association of Realtors, how that has changed things. What did it mean? What didn't it mean? There's a lot of stuff flying around out there in various ways on the internet about what happened, and just want to talk about that. Basically, if you didn't know, the way agent commissions for a long time have worked is that the seller has paid both their agent and the buyer's agent. So when they have their first meetings with their agent and they're signing their paperwork, it used to say right there in their contract what they were going to pay a buyer's agent. And then when the house listed, that would go up in the RMLS. It would flow over to Zillow and Redfin, all those also, it was public, that said, this is what we're offering a buyer's agent. And as a buyer's agent, you kind of didn't really have to have much of a conversation about it with your buyer. It was already there. It was offered. You knew exactly what it was going to be. It was part of their contract already. It's done. But there was a group of sellers that said, that's not fair. We shouldn't have to do this. It shouldn't be assumed that we would always do this. It amounts to price fixing because we can't negotiate it. We can't change it. So the settlement has basically done what we're calling decoupled the commission. So instead of everything automatically coming from the seller now, it's not. It can, but it's not assumed like that anymore. So now when a seller meets with their agent, they're just talking about what they're paying their agent. That's the agreement. That the listing contract does not talk about a buyer's agent anymore, at least in Oregon. And it doesn't go in the RMLS anymore. There's no offering automatically like that from a seller. On the other side, if you are a buyer's agent, you have a buyer that is now looking at buying a house, you need to have that conversation. And there's a document that the state and RMLS have created that does a couple things. The first part talks about the agent's responsibilities to you as a buyer and makes an agreement that you two are working together. And really the point of that part is to say that as a buyer, you're not going to be working with 12 different agents, having 12 different agents put in a lot of time and work for you, putting in offers, showing you houses, whatever, and then go off with a different one when somebody else has done all this work. So there's a commitment there from both parties to each other. And that commitment can be for one day, it can be for a week, it can be 6 months, it can be for one specific property. And really what's nice about that is it's hard to commit to somebody necessarily that fast. If you met them online, maybe they were referred to you by a friend, you don't know them yet, you don't know what their value is, and you're signing this saying, yes, I choose to work only with you. You can have it for a short period of time or only a specific house that you're seeing until you decide maybe that this is somebody I want to work with, and you can extend that time. The second part talks more about the commission, talks about the commission and says, this is what, as a buyer's agent, I get paid. It's usually a percentage in our market anyway of the sales price, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a flat rate. This is what I get paid. And we can still ask the seller for it, but if they don't pay it, if they say no, it's still owed. And as a buyer, potentially you could be on the hook for that commission. In my experience, what I'm seeing, we are still asking the seller to pay for it. So when I am having these conversations with sellers, I'm saying all of this is what changed, this is how it used to be, this is what we do now. We are not pre-agreeing on anything. I'm not offering anything to a buyer's agent, but be prepared when we get offers, they will likely still ask for it. And what that amount is can vary. It's not a set rate. You can negotiate that. The seller can always come back and say, yes, I'll pay some, but not what you've asked. Or maybe the offer was really low and say, no, I'm not doing that. It doesn't make sense for me to do that and accept the lower offer. Maybe you offered a little over to make up for it. And that's what your agent is going to go over with you. What is the net of this offer? Is this actually a good offer? Taking all of this into consideration. And as a buyer's agent, the conversation I'm having is same thing, that these are the changes. We absolutely can still ask for it. If they say no, we're going to have to figure out what to do. That for me is what's the hardest. And all of the good agents I know personally, that's our problem I guess, dilemma here is that we want you to get the house that you want. We don't want to be the reason you don't get it. Now that this is part of that negotiation, if we offer on your dream house and they come back and say, well, we got another offer and they didn't ask for that commission, can you drop it? What do we do? Are you in a position to pay that? Do we need to cut it? What do we do? So far, I haven't had to see that through to the end. We have managed to get through that negotiation, and it's come from the seller every time still, thinking that through every time. But those are kind of the things. So I've had people say, I heard that to even see a house, we have to sign a contract with you. Technically, yes, that is correct. Part of that first part of that contract where it says what the agent's duties are and that we're working together, that was part of the settlement. We have to get that paper signed. We, agents, have to get that signed before we are allowed to show you a house legally. So even if you just want to see one, it's your neighbor, something in your neighbor, legally, we have to have that signed. That's why I said it can be for just one day. It can be for just one house. But we have to have that representation agreement signed. Other things I've heard people say, I read in the news, commissions are going away. They didn't go away. Like I said, that word decoupling that we're using, they were decoupled. It's not automatic from the seller. It's now something we request. And the seller absolutely can come back and say no, and you can choose to move forward and figure it out yourself. You can choose to walk away. You can choose to counter again and try to keep negotiating that. There's different ways it can go. But that's kind of a very quick rundown of those changes and how I've seen them play out here. I think it's a good conversation. I think the best part of what came out of it is the transparency. It's not always a super fun conversation with a first-time buyer to say, hey, this is what we're going to have to do and how we're going to have to figure it out. But it's good. It's good to know where your money is going and where the seller's money is going. Transparency is never a bad thing. So that's what I see as the advantage. The obvious disadvantage, kind of already talked about, is that making it a part of the negotiation means potentially somebody else's offer becomes better than yours because they had the money to pay that up front. So far, I haven't had to work through that. I will find a way when that's what comes up. But any questions about that? I'm sure. And this is pretty standard now nationwide. Those two changes, needing to sign that paper and not offering it up front, like in the RMLS, are nationwide changes, not just Oregon. So any questions on that? I'd love to talk through it. Opinions, questions, experiences, any of the above. All right, thanks.